It's Jay Rothman. I am the host of the show. If you missed last week's episode, we had Rachel Fiore coming in from San Diego, California. Enjoy this short clip.
Love is a way.
And
love is a way of being. It means I can show up in self-love, divine power, connected to my light, connected to my divinity. If I love myself, I am the way of unconditional love. Then when there is a need to set a boundary, for example, I love myself enough to do it. That is an aspect of love. If I need to say no to somebody, I do that with love because love has no judgment. Love means we have a chance, an opportunity to become what we have learned to seek outside of ourselves. It comes from within, it emanates from us to others, but it is always the source of what we are, the truth of what we are. If we can begin to learn what that means, we can heal, we can elevate, and then we can be the way of unconditional love for other people in the world.
Spectacular.
here we go. We got one more.
Where I start with is with everyone's story, where they're at, where they came from, where they're looking to go. The more knowledge we have, now start making conversation where we can connect on a deeper level through the lens of love. So when I teach this rainbow serpent, you're really governing self-development. We've got to go back to those early ages. It gives you a deeper understanding, and overstanding on the consciousness behind human emotion. I'll start them off in those lower realms. Have you ever talked to your mum about your story at 0 to 2 years old? Do you know if she was happy when you were in the womb? Do you know if there was any violence going on the outside of that womb? Whether we felt that safety and sense of security, then we start rising this serpent to the sacred waters. From 2 to 4 years old, this is when our emotions start to form. If those waters have been stagnant, toxic, then they don't move. They don't allow you to be able to move up into heart space. So when we're able to move those waters and emotions, and we start to get a little bit more self-worth, self-value, then we start to go into what feeds your heart. The vitality of your heart is fed by your sun. In my culture, we call panau, your solar plexus. This is why they say when you have water, emotions, meeting heat, what's that cause? Esteem. So we build our self-esteem. That esteem rises as a bridge into that heart space. It's going to take patience for you to actually start trying to even open up this heart before you go up into the higher realms, into the spirit.
So powerful.
Again, my name is Jay Rothman. Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Live. Welcome back to the studio, Real Men, Real Talk Live. This evening, we have a special guest joining us, coming in from the state of Washington, Seattle area, Treloar Hocking, who is part of Rachel Fiore's organization, and she is a mystical life coach. Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Live for the first time, Treloar.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I've been watching you guys for quite a while now, and there's so much beautiful wisdom shared here. I'm so excited to be a part of it. Thank you so much for letting me be here with you.
It's an honor to have you. And of course, we have the man of the land from down under. He calls Australia home. He goes by the Aboriginal. Welcome back, Evis Love. Audio. We're not able to hear you. Can you go without the headphones? See if you could take the headphones off and just go raw. Old style. Well, while we're waiting for Evis to light us up with his audio, we might as well just go with one more short clip from last week's
Love
episode.
it.
What we miss out on is the opportunity to embrace the essence of when we feel the pain and we reveal it, we can absolutely heal it. But as long as we're living in the pain, we're living in that dark, dense, muck, dirty energy, we will never experience the true essence of peace within. We will always be seeking happiness, joy, feeling of comfort, feeling of safety, plugging into somebody else, thinking that they're going to bring us home. It will never work. Believe me, if I could have done it, I would have done it. If I could have achieved that, it would have happened. I spent decades trying to fill myself up with people, places, and things. And in the end, it did not bring me home. So what is it that brings us home, Treloar? What is it that brings us home?
I'll tell you, for me lately, it's just really understanding for the first time ever how divine I am and how divine all of you are. It's the truth, like really falling in love with myself. That's what brings me home these days, and definitely working on that for sure.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, Ev, how's your audio right now? You back? Nope.
Oh.
No audio. Well, as we wait for Evis to get his audio back, I'm going to introduce tonight's topic. No. I guess the universe has a different plan. Ev, see what you could do offline. Get your audio back and jump back in when it works. We'll see in a little bit. But in the meantime, tonight's episode is 158. And tonight's episode is all about the demasculinization of men. And as we've introduced Treloar Hocking joining us as a co-host for her first episode, this is an absolutely critical topic. And we felt that it was an appropriate topic to invite the feminine divine into tonight's episode to represent the female perspective, because this is not just a male issue. This is a collective. This is a society's issue. And so what I want to invite Treloar to do is to kind of open us up, get us hot, and share with us from her perspective, what does this topic mean to you, and how is the demasculinization of men in society? What has been your relationship with that, as we talked about in the production room, from power of power to the power of love? Open us up, get us hot, kick us off. And oh, by the way, viewers, welcome back to episode 158, Real Men, Real Talk Live.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to share my personal experience with this. What I'm going to say is toxic masculine, really learning the difference between those characteristics, those patterns that we run, and the difference between divine masculine. And it's definitely something that I've had to learn, that I continue to work through in my own life. What I needed to understand was that I carried toxic masculine traits within me, even as a female. You know, I'm somebody who was an accounting controller for many, many years. I worked in a good old boys society, if you will, in a lot of boardrooms and things like that. And I garnered and gained these aspects of myself that weren't always showing up in the best interest. You know, I could be aggressive, for instance. Toxic masculine would mean that there was dominating or competition, for instance. Sometimes there would be fear of sharing emotion, if you will, and not allowing that beautiful, femininity in me to be available at work. So that looked like being guarded. Sometimes divine masculine shows up as inequality, or toxic masculine shows up as inequality. And so I had to start to understand that this was affecting the relationships that I not only had at work, but also at home. And one of the aspects that I realized there was how I had emasculated my husband by being this really strong, powerful, what I thought I was supposed to be showing up as, didn't leave any room for him in our relationship in all of the natural, wonderful ways that a man would show up in a relationship. And so this is a deep, deep conversation. There's so many incredible aspects that we can dig into this tonight, and I'm super excited to talk about it.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for opening us up. And just for our viewers who are wondering what happened to Josh Richer and Jeff Fasano, they will both be back next week. Josh Richer will be wrapping up his responsibilities on the Shark Tank on the 27th of June. He'll be back here on June 29th for our next episode. And Jeff Fasano is also right now doing a book signing in Wisconsin and doing a festival music shoot. So both men are doing what they do, doing their passion work, but they will be back next week. Now, Real Men, my group of Real Men aren't even aware of this, but we have a guest coming in next week that many of our viewers that have been with us from day one. He was an original member of Real Men Real Talk Live. His name is Charles Maddox. He and I, by the way, welcome back, Evis. Your audio is working right now. Welcome back. But next week, Jeff and Josh, and you weren't aware of this till this moment, Charles and I had a great conversation right around Father's Day this year, just last Sunday. And it was a very personal, very vulnerable conversation. And I said, Charles, I think it's time for you to come back into the studio.
Beautiful.
And we're going to talk about not only being a father, but what it was like having a father in our life or not having a father and how it's impacted us as men. And so next week, if all things are in alignment, Charles Maddox will be back with us, one of the original co-hosts of Real Men Real Talk Live. So I'm really excited. Evis, back into the demasculinization of men tonight. What does that mean for you? And what did you hear in Treloar's opening kickoff that resonated with you? But I'm also interested to hear from your perspective, what does this mean for you?
Yeah, beautiful. And thanks for opening it up, sister. Just a couple of technical difficulties here in the land down under. But as always, we're on divine time. So back on connection here. And it is really one of those things that I'm passionate about. I've been helping many men for years wrapped around this particular imbalance, I would say, of the masculine energy. But we've got to really take into account, what's happened here. It just hasn't happened overnight. These programs that we're currently experiencing and witnessing here on the planet Earth is all part, like I said last week with Rachel on our unconditional love. It's all part of this purging that we're still going through on the planet to be able to come more into balance and, really be in connection, not only with nature itself, but with also the collective and community, but most importantly, our true divine self. And where I want to start with the emasculation of the masculine energy really wraps around where we've come from. Now, I'm passionate about my culture. We talk a lot about culture. And one thing that for any viewers that may not understand First Nations cultures, from the time we were born, brothers and sisters, we were born into the clan, into the tribe. You were known as the son. You were known as the brother to someone else. You may have even been known as the uncle to someone else. You may have even been known as the other uncle father to someone else. So we were brought into a system where straight away, regarding our values and our responsibilities within that clan was known. One beautiful thing that was always taken into account before even any of the steps in men's business in initiation practices was that you were always supported by a group of men. You were always supported by a group of brothers that took you through these steps that you as the viewer may know as rites of passage. Fast forward into the modern world, we've actually been rewound. And what I mean by that, many men's rite of passage have been really skewed. It's really been, I would say, delusion. Men have literally lost their power, or they've gained an toxic power in regards to the masculine energy. Now, where I want to come in tonight, because I want to hear more from our sister, being our divine feminine guest tonight. But where I want to come in from is really learning and helping people to understand that not only has it been an emasculation of the masculine energy, but we've really got to take into our awareness of what's happening with the feminine energy as well, as we all start to awaken to this beautiful process of what it is to be a sacred masculine.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, and I'll share, a lot of us are on a healing journey, maybe a lot of the listeners, like this is really something that you really take to heart. And what a lot of us are learning right now is to bring a lot of this feminine energy in order to heal ourselves. And so there becomes this kind of new, waters to move through, if you will. And we don't quite know where the masculine and feminine fits in sometimes. And that could be part of the equation. And, and bringing feminine energy in is beautiful because it's got the power to heal, it's got the flow that we need in order to do that. However, without having beautiful divine masculine energy, we don't have the stability that's needed in order to keep the feminine energy flowing. So they're vital to each other. They're pieces to each other's puzzle. They complete each other in a lot of ways. And, I can say too, with culturally, what I've seen, that may have started in the 90s, let's say, I have a couple of adult children. The relationships that my children have as men, if you will, in their families are very different than what I was raised with in the maybe what might look more separate roles. And so there's a beauty in that as well, to see these men being so courageous, and so confident in rearing their children and getting down and dirty with diapers and all of these beautiful things. And in some ways, it's taken it way over to the other side where they're not as balanced in the masculine anymore. And it's so important for our families to have that stable, reliable, consistent energy. And that's something that men naturally bring. And Evis, you said one thing, the relationship with power, with masculinity has also changed in women. As I was sharing earlier, my first husband was a military man, and, he was gone for the first couple of years of our relationship. And so really I had no choice but to step in and run all aspects of our home. And so I thought that I was doing a good job continuing to do that. Right. So even though I had learned this traditional role of the woman, back in the 70s and 80s, supposedly, I was actually trying to fill his shoes and to unconsciously take it too far and realize that I had actually accidentally emasculated him. It's so true. I did, and in his frustration, he would come with, and it really was a destructive piece of our relationship. And it was well after the fact that I understood it was the case. Right. But I left no room for him to bring in his natural gifts. Like I said, all of that consistent energy, all of that reliability, all of that strength, that men just naturally bring in their masculinity is vital. And so, this is where we are. We're in this paradox of times where there isn't a lot of what you experienced, Evis, in a lot of the cultures these days. And in fact, there's a lot of uphealing and a lot of unraveling of roles. And so people are just stuck trying to navigate it all. And we can swing in these big swings from one side to the other. And so one of the things that I try to do is find the middle way every day, right? Figure out when sometimes I'll need a little more feminine energy and sometimes I really need a little more masculine, or maybe I asked for masculine energy. And that's something that I changed in my second marriage, because I learned the lesson, how vital it was for me to allow him to lead also. and that we could lead together in this very collaborative relationship with each other, right? And let his strengths shine, you know, foster those strengths, give permission for them, encourage them, ask for them. You know, these are all the things that we can change as women to allow men to continue to rise in their divinity and their masculine. So, yeah.
Beautiful, sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love what I'm hearing so far, and what I'm realizing is this is one of those. This is the first time that we are taking this deep dive into the demasculinization of men. We're on our 158th episode, and we've never gone here before. And the truth is that this is a complex topic because there's many parts and pieces to this. I want to share from my perspective what I've experienced is that what I've witnessed over the many years that I've been working with clients, as well as just witnessing relationships outside of my business between men and women, husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends, brothers and sisters. Many relationships evolve into where we end up showing up the way our parents showed up, meaning we treat our partners the way we go into that role playing. The women become their mothers, the fathers, the husbands become their fathers, so on and so forth. And what happens is we keep replaying the same scenarios, and many of us are not aware that how our partners are showing up, they're treating us as though we are another child of theirs. So for example, if you're married and you have a few children, how many of us women in society are actually speaking to our husbands or our partners as though they are one of our children? And it's not, I don't believe it's an intentional, conscious choice that we're making, but we're not aware of the impact it has on the man. And what I mean by that is as soon as the wife shows up or the partner shows up in a very, very strong masculine tone, the look, the hands on the hips, the rolling of the eyes, all those behaviors that are seeping through in a very, again, subconscious or unconscious way, the husband is receiving it as though one more time he's done something wrong. And what it triggers is the child within. The little boy all of a sudden shows up. He shows up as though he feels, and even most likely not even consciously aware of it, that he's being shamed the way we may shame our children. And what that does is it actually creates the potential for a toxic masculine man to show up, as in frustrated, feeling like he's not being heard, seen, or understood, feeling like he's not being respected, and feeling absolutely embarrassed the way he receives it, even in front of his own children. So here's another angle that for me, I am so passionate about, because we're not even consciously aware of the damage that we are creating within our own intimate relationship in our home. And then we're not breaking the chain to that. So we're now teaching our sons and daughters how to treat, when they become adults, how to treat their partnership in their adulthood. And so the pattern continues, the pain continues. And it's time for us to become a more conscious society. Be aware of how we're speaking. Be aware of the tone we're using. Be aware of even the body language. And realize this is how my mom treated my father. Well, how well did it work for their relationship? So why are we showing up repeating the same behavior? And what we're just doing is as Eva said in last week's show, is we're destroying the esteem of the man. We're destroying his confidence.
Yeah.
How many women even, tell them their husbands or partners what to do or what not to do, what to say or what not to say, even to their own children, maybe even in front of their children.
Yeah.
How is that impacting their esteem? We receive it. The little boy shows up one more time as though he can't do anything right. There was many times in my past where I felt it was like an inside dialogue where I was like, no matter what I say, no matter what I do, it's right. For me, that's the true definition of the demasculinization of men.
Yeah.
So what do you make of that, Treloar, what I just shared? Because it was a little nugget there, I believe.
Absolutely. And I think you're right on. Women don't understand that they actually are taking an enormous part in having, their partner be in a mother-son relationship with them. They just don't. And it is true. I see it in relationships all around me. And it can sometimes be the slightest little comment, the little gesture in the tones, there's so much that goes on in relationships. And then they're upset that they don't have a man around. They're upset that they don't have somebody that has their back. They're upset that he isn't there doing the heavy lifting with them, and then they're, like I hear this stuff in relationships. And you're right. The pendulum swings from side to side, and you're absolutely right. We, demonstrate these behaviors, and then it becomes cycles and cycles between our families of this unhealthiness that goes on. And the reality is esteem, to help build that and to help nurture that between each other. It should be something we all want for each other in every relationship, especially in the one that you're choosing to spend the rest of your life with, or at least in this moment with, with beautiful respect means you inquire without judgment. We take a moment, we recognize our own patterns that we're running. Did we get triggered? We don't go into our stuff and start to project on other people. We breathe and we go into inquiry when we're wanting to question. We don't belittle in our questions. We don't snap in our questions. And these are things that, women can be labeled for, is being very reactive, very emotional, things like that. There's some truth to that. That's the unhealed feminine, and the unhealed masculine, and all of those wounds within themselves that allows that behavior to happen. And the reality is if we're respectful with each other, if we appreciate, the strengths, as I was saying, that each other has to provide in this, we can stop and, really eradicate that stuff out of our relationships. So yeah, Beautiful. It's powerful, Jay.
Beautiful.
Powerful.
What do you make of that, Ev?
Both of you say some beautiful things, and in the context of it all, where is it coming from? Obviously, it's coming from the upbringing, from our parents. I'll put my hand up, and I've told my story a couple of times before, but I never really had a father role model around at a particular time when I guess my mum needed that emotional availability. So as a child, I had to take that responsibility for mum. Now, there's a big wound that can really be carried on into your adulthood. That can play out in me being frustrated going into relationships. That could, play out with womanizing within relationships, all because the masculine energy feels less than. Why? Because that responsibility as a young kid, not being able to give mum the solutions or the answers she wanted, you take that on, brothers. So for our divine feminine to understand this, all we ask is for you to see us. All we ask is for you to feel our pain. So it's creating that sacred space that allows us to go deep into those emotions, into that sacral center, like I was talking about last week, to actually start getting these waters flowing and moving from those swampy, murky, and like Jay was saying in his beautiful reel, toxic waters that we continue to rise up into where our confidence center is, which is that sun. It truly is our vitality. And if we don't have that confidence within ourselves to make decisions, be assertive, and walk in our presence as a masculine, healthy masculine, then we start judging ourselves. And that's where we start to lose ourselves and become toxic in that particular energy.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. I love that you said, and we need to remember and remind ourselves and remind each other how important it is to be supported, but feel supported. The container that you said, that's a vital part of the experience that we should be creating for ourselves in every aspect with every relationship. Absolutely. To be seen. It's so important to do that. And we'll stop these behaviors against each other, on each other, to each other, when we pause and start to realize how important our responsibility is in that. Rachel always says the first way of unconditional love is the way of responsibility. And it's real. We need to take responsibility for how we've shown up. That's how I understood how not to do to my second husband what I did to my first, for instance, was I took responsibility for that. There wasn't shame involved in understanding that I didn't know any different. This is how I showed up. Right. And just to recognize that I get to make the choice to do something different because I wanted to create a sacred container in my partnership. I wanted not only to be seen and heard and loved, I got to do the same. We can't just want. This is a collaboration. Yeah.
What's coming forward for me is that, as you acknowledged in our opening, Treloar, is that you acknowledge that your first husband was away doing his service and his job in the military. And so you took on the responsibilities at home, taking care of the home, raising the children, paying the bills, doing it all. And that created within you really tapping into the masculine divine energy within. Now, for the viewers that may not be aware, just because you're a woman, just because we're men, doesn't mean that we only have one. We have testosterone and estrogen within our body. We have the masculine and the feminine energy within our body.
Yes.
And really what this is about is that what happens is that you're in flow, you're intensely doing everything you could do to be the best mother, to be the best wife, to hold the fort down, as we may have said in the past, while he's doing his job as well. And then he comes home and it's like he just becomes the third or fourth child or the fifth child, because you're just in automotion. You're just in motion, showing up. And all of a sudden, now, even in your case where he was gone for months at a time, if you're in a relationship with a partner where he may be working 12 hours a day, not the 8-hour shift, but the 12 or 15, or if you're really pushing it at times into 18, the wife may also have those same experiences. And so what happens is that we're overcompensating.
Yes.
And we're not even aware then of, now how do we tone it down and accept our partner back into the home, our home, and not be on autopilot. So I just want to clarify, this is not about blame. I'm not pointing the finger at all. That's not my intention. My intention is just to speak my truth based on what I experience in my own life experience, as well as what I receive with so many of my clients that I work with. And for me, really what I had to learn in my own life was how to find balance. So this is a shift in tonight's episode. I want to kind of dive in a little bit about what does the balance look like? Because you see, I grew up in a home where I was taught the programming was real boys don't cry. And then it was backed up with how I received the message. And so by the time I became that young adult, I didn't cry because I didn't want to get punishment one more time. And so I walled off from that part within myself that is not healthy. It's called the heart space, or the emotions. And the only feelings that I was able to express was frustration, right? Anger, the ones that men can
Yes.
reach for pretty easily because
Yes.
it's right there at the surface, right? But the truth is that I didn't feel safe in most of my life to really be able to tap into finding what does the balance look like. I didn't even know there was such a thing because it wasn't taught in school. There was nowhere, even in therapy. 21 years in therapy, not one therapist ever had this conversation with me that we're having right here, right now on Real Men Real Talk Live. It didn't happen.
Right.
I showed up and I dumped. I dumped the last week's story of all the crap that went down. See you next week. Come back the next week. I got new stories. But we never went in deep enough to really explain and educate me right here and here as to where is the connection between the heart and the head, and learning how to feel safe in your own home, physical home, as well as your own home within here, your body temple. To know when it's okay to feel emotional, to express your emotions. I'm not talking about emotional as in rage. I'm talking about to be able to understand what's underneath the rage. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling lonely. Whatever those feelings are, emotions are, to be able to first recognize them, and then to be able to feel safe enough to reveal them first to yourself. And then if you're in a relationship with someone, to feel safe to express it to them. And then not wait for them to rescue you from those feelings and emotions as a man, or not belittle you for having them.
Right. Right.
But to honor you for having them. To honor you for having them. To give you the space that you need, or ask you as your partner, is there anything I can do for you right now? At times, I may say, you know what? Just a hug. Sometimes I may say, let's go have a play date. Let's go do something. Let's get out of the house. Let's do something fun. Let's connect. Sometimes I must say, I'll see you in a couple of hours. I just need time so I can come back into balance, so I can understand why I am feeling sad, and then honor those feelings and emotions as a man. But at the same time, no one to show up as the man, no one to be the gentleman, no one to open the door for your partner, no one to help out or assist in the home and doing some chores around the house without anticipating or asking for good job. Just show up. Just show up. And also showing up as a man includes paying attention to how your partner's showing up, paying attention to their energy, paying attention to their body language, and then checking in with them. Is everything okay? How are you feeling today? And when you sense that something's off, I'm here for you. Is that making sense, Af, what I just shared?
Beautiful, brother. It all makes sense to me. And I think what you're talking about there are conscious partnerships. You know, as we go into this new way of living, like I mentioned, everything that you just mentioned there, my friend. And that's just a beautiful balance of that masculine and that feminine energy. But, you know, until we're able to even just have these conversations like you've beautifully shared with us there, particularly when we're in that relationship or partnership, then the old programming will naturally probably be running unconscious in the background.
Yeah.
So another big thing that I'm seeing with a lot of men, you know, and this comes on the feminine energy as well, that, you know, we need to fix our own stuff. Like Jay said, he may need to take a couple of hours alone time You may need to take a couple of days' time. And can that be accepted as a feminine energy? Can that be respected as a feminine energy? Or are you going to go into your old programs of jealousy or fear? What could happen? Oh, you're not with me. What are you going really to do? So when men feel really constrained, they don't have that sense of freedom. And then when women go on that angle, that toxic energy may say, why don't you want to be committed to me? So there's all these programs running in the background from earlier programming and conditioning and societal norms. So that's when we take responsibility and accountability for our own actions and behaviors and become aware of the patterns. I mean, I turned up in relationships, I was showing the same patterns. It was a different person, it was a different energy, but I had to be a common denominator as well. What's going on with my behavior that seems to be running into this same energy, different person? So I was able to become more self-aware within my own being. Then that allowed me to able to express this to men that I revered and trusted in my circle. And this is important for our sisters to understand and understand as well. It's not so much that we don't want to swim in the emotions with you. It's just part of our biology. It's actually part of our DNA. Like I said, in cultural ways, we were supported by other men that heard and seen us. Whereas today with the brothers that I'm helping, man, they're coming in meek, they're coming in drawn, they're coming in weak, they're coming in with low confidence and low self-esteem because they don't have this support. So there's a lot of different angles, like you said at the start, Mr. Rothman, and we could definitely do a couple of shows on this one, man.
So does DNA stand for do not assist?
Good. I like that, man. I like that, man.
You know, it's interesting. When we landed on this topic, ironically, well, I'd say I'll pull that back. What showed up in my universe was a random article written by a female about the demasculinization of men. And she had a whole different angle. She came in from the angle of that society is destroying men because society, basically, she said men are showing up as weak men, or what she called pussies. She used the language in this article. And then she went on to expand further and say, when is it? It's time for real men to show up. And basically she actually believed that real men shouldn't be crying.
Oh, wow.
So that's the demasculinization of men. She said, we need strong men in our lives. Now, again, you know, what do you make of that, Treloar?
Yeah.
Because, can a man be strong, but still show up?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let's just get to the physicality of it, that men generally are stronger than women, even just physically. So how are they not going to have those same characteristics emotionally? Just naturally. Right. Just to say that. And so for women not to be like, oh, I need a strong man means, I need an aggressive man, or whatever their misunderstanding is about what strong men are. There's some women out there that are so wounded that they want to be handled, if you will. And so they misunderstand what strong is. Strong is stable. It's reliable. It's consistent. It's gentle when it needs to be gentle. And it's forceful when it needs to hold a container to protect. This is what strength is. It's perseverance. And men naturally have this within them. We actually all naturally have this within them. But, men that arrive on the planet with this have a bit more than women. And the reality is we need men to provide all of that stability and all of that reliability. Because what happens when a woman's in flow is that we do then have the ability to be our best selves. And I am not saying that I need a man to be my best self. So please do not misinterpret that whatsoever. I got it, right? Because I'm building divine masculinity within myself. I'm building the same consistency, the same inner strength, the same fortitude and things like that. But I'll tell you what, in order to be in a balanced relationship, I'd like to be in my natural feminine side as often as possible and allow the aspects of me as a woman. I am a very emotional woman. Yeah, I really, really am. And I appreciate that about myself. I have value about that. And so I want to naturally be able to show up there, which means I cannot be upset when my man is strong. And not force him to do it in the way that I want, but in the way that he naturally has his ability to, and to encourage him and uplift him and empower him in every way I can, to just be himself. Right. And I agree with you that, a lot of boys, a lot of men have been raised not being able to be emotional. And it's a vital part of their healing. A lot of men show up with aggression and anger as their natural reactive response because they've never been allowed to discover the other emotions under there. They've been stifled down, right? And so that's the one that just gets to pop out because it's socially acceptable, for instance, and there's just so much here where as a woman that I can say, I completely appreciate what you're saying, both of you. So many beautiful nuggets there.
I want to jump real quick because you said what really came forward for me is that when we talk about the demasculinization of men, what it really is if we want to break that down, it's the disempowerment.
Yes.
It's a disempowerment of men. And when I'm going to go back in is that when we are showing up in our relationships and we are being talked to as though we are a child, mom's showing up one more time. I'm receiving it not as my wife, not as my girlfriend, not as my partner, but I'm receiving it as one more time, that little kid within here, he's done something wrong. And in that moment, my shoulders come down. Look at the body language, how quickly it comes down instead of being up like this, right?
Yeah, defeated.
We are disempowered and we feel defeated when a woman in our life or our partners in our life show up and treat us like we're little boys.
Right.
And it's time. Exactly. It's time for us to show up and grow up, not only as men, but it's time for us as women to show up and grow up and stop treating our men, our significant others, as though we are children.
Yes. And I'll tell you, it feels absolutely freaking fantastic when somebody has your back the way your male partner can have your back.
Say that again, please. I want to hear that. I want to feel that.
It's absolutely fantastic when your partner has your back, when your man shows up to have your back. It's so absolutely extraordinary to have that feeling of safety that a masculine man that's in his divinity can provide for a woman. It's absolutely extraordinary. It's a beautiful gift because then we're empowered. You see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a dance. Isn't it? Isn't that what this is about, Ev? Isn't this a dance? The dance, do you understand what I mean? Well, why don't you explain from your interpretation, what is the dance that we're talking about here?
The dance is the beautiful masculine feminine energy within.
Right.
So it's a dance within. You're only going to really attract this, and this is important for you brothers out there. If a woman is going into that masculine energy and she is overpowering you in certain ways that make you feel weak or disempowered, I'm going to say it, brothers, that's on you, man. What do I mean by that? It is natural for the masculine energy to be more assertive in their presence, in their demeanor. Now, this is not by saying that you show anger in regards, but that assertiveness, that decisiveness will allow your woman, your feminine energy within, but also that beloved, to receive naturally as the feminine energy. So she will only go into her masculine energy when she doesn't feel safe, when she doesn't feel secure, when she doesn't feel stable.
Beautiful.
So it's on you, brothers. What are you doing in your life to make yourself feel confident, to build that self-esteem? Are you looking after yourself with self-care? Have you got purpose? Have you got a vision? See, this is in our DNA in evolutionary terms. And none of that has changed much, except what we're currently living in within our lifestyle, where we may be running from the tiger, which may be just a bad email, or whether it may be, we may not have any vision or purpose, which I'm seeing in many men.
Wow. Well, here's my reality here. I got chills right now. So that for me, that means, for those that don't know what that means, it means that this truth that just got dropped down.
Beautiful.
This truth. And here's my truth. I didn't know how to dance. This is a new dance for me. It's coming up on almost 8 years now. But you know what? I went out into the wilderness today. I went deep into the wilderness and I went high. I took it all the way to the top of the canyon wall. I took it to the stairway to heaven today. And you know what I did when I got up top? I danced. I did the moon dance up there. I literally danced. And I didn't have music on. I didn't need music on in that moment. The music was on right in here. Because in that moment, I was connected to me, myself, and I. But at the same time, I was connected to two beautiful angels that were with me on this journey today for just under 6 hours. You want to talk about a dance? We danced the whole way up. We danced the whole way down, slipping and sliding. I can't even begin to tell you. I had more thorns in my right hand than I ever experienced. But you know what? I showed up.
Yeah.
You know how I showed up as a man today? I had a tweezer with me. I had my power tool with me. That's what I'm talking about.
Awesome.
And then I offered the power tool to one of the angels that got a few thorns. And then we continued. And we all danced and we all had fun. Because at least for me, I can't speak for them, but I showed up in balance. The feminine and the masculine divine energy was there. And not only did I show up as that man in peace, but I let that little boy come out and play. When we made it to the top, we made it to heaven. I did the moonwalk. I had fun. It even got captured by one of the angels that were with me today. There was no demasculinization in that moment.
Exactly.
I just showed up. And in that moment, I had one more layer of ascension of growing up. That's how we do it, man. And as Ev said, you could blame everyone in your life that's making you feel that way. They have to be willing to take accountability for their part, but we have to be willing to take accountability for our part too. It's time to show up and it's time to grow up. And if your partner is not able to hear you and see you and understand you and honor you and respect you and not belittle you and not disempower you, even after you've communicated what you need in that relationship, then it's up to you to make a decision. Do I stay or do I go? We could dance that one out right here, right now.
Right.
Do I stay or do I go? Are you worthy of that, or are you worthy of something more? What do you make of that, Treloar?
Oh, I think your experience today was absolutely divine and gorgeous. And I'm so glad that you shared with us how you allowed yourself to be truly liberated in that moment, because it's absolutely a beautiful example of something that we can do for ourselves every day, is to move through our stuff, take responsibility for it, go into our heart-centered space to heal, allow the feminine energy to rise up in you so that you can allow yourself to emotion and actually alchemize what's in there that's keeping you from your divinity. That's what's going to bring your masculinity into power. You're going to find and embody that divine masculine along with the feminine masculine. We all have both aspects of these. We both need, or we all need both aspects of these, masculine and feminine, in our lives. It's so important for us to figure that out. And some days, I recognize in some situations even, I need a little more femininity here, a little more masculinity there. And like you said, it's just this dance that we learn to do when we start to take responsibility for our own work. We invest in it, we value it. This is what also helps us feel more powerful. I love that the conversation of power came up, because it's the truth. It's the truth. This is how we gain power. This is how we remember our divinity. This is how we step into our true essence. And this is how we liberate ourselves. And this is it. That's what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. Dig in, dig deep, be there for each other, love each other. That means listening with an open heart, taking responsibility for your shit that comes up, in that moment. Maybe it is, like Jay said, take a couple of hours away, a couple of days away, like Eva said, to take care of ourselves, take care of our stuff, and come back and be the divine partner that we can be, not only for ourselves, but for everyone else on the planet.
Magic, sister.
Thank you. We're in it together.
As we come up to the hour, believe it or not, I want to invite you to close us out with a couple of wisdom hits. Drop something down that we can take out into the universe. And what do you make of tonight's topic?
Look, I think I just feel how fast this show has gone, man. Like that's the so-called power hour, and it's such a deep topic which it could be discussed on so many levels. In this short hour, what I've really heard and what I've felt, is just the open conversation that we're able to have, particularly with our divine feminine tonight. There's one thing you could really do, particularly if you're in a relationship or partnership, that is to listen to each other. It's to get this open, authentic, and this true conversation happening, that we can openly communicate some of these pains, some of these hurts, some of these shames. There's nothing more, I'd say, debilitating for a male than the emotion of shame. When a masculine energy feels shameful about something that may have happened within his life that he hasn't been able to express, it is natural for his nature, and it is his go-to emotion to go to anger, to go to frustration. But that's only because he's guarding something. And then you wonder why men put on the mask. Yeah. Some men lose their identity over this. It's so debilitating that they even put up the wall around the heart space. So when we dig into this area, those 3 light centers down at the bottom that I always talk about in my Rainbow Serpent dreaming, that is the masculine energy. The sense of safety, security, stability, that creates the foundation and the base to start fueling those emotions that have been blocked for so many men that are taking their lives by the hour. So when we actually dig deep, like our sister said, into those emotions, and from the feminine energy, just hold the space. there is nothing more precious than the divine feminine energy to nurture, care, love, and not judge.
Beautiful.
And when the masculine energy has that, it allows him to be able to express his divine masculine and feminine energy. But in that whole process also allows that divine feminine to be able to express her fluid and creativity, goddess power within each and all of us.
Treloar, closing thoughts?
Oh, it's just absolutely gorgeous. That was just amazing. Yes, to remember, women, nurturing energy is divine feminine. Supportive energy is divine feminine. Creative energy. And when we have the reliability, the safety, and the strength and the courage of the masculine energy, all of that is free to rise up itself. And so we owe it to each other, to our partners, to come in balance with these two aspects of ourselves and with each other, and appreciate the natural abilities that each of us have. We owe it to each other.
Beautiful. Let's just take a moment here, just a second here or two, just for silence. It's time for us to heal.
Yes.
Men and women, our masculine and our feminine energy within, so that we stop harming each other. We start hurting each other. We stop disempowering each other. But we start to learn how to show up for each other. Here's the gateway for that. Before you can show up for your partner in a healthy way, you have to learn how to show up for yourself.
You got it.
Way. Stop leaning into them to fill your empty voids within. Stop leaning into that your partner to make you feel better. It is not your partner's responsibility to make you feel better. That is your responsibility as a man and as a woman in a relationship. It's time we all take a breath. We all have the courage to look in the mirror, to go in deep, to ask the questions. Why have I gone through 3, 4, 5 marriages? So many relationships, wounded, damaged, pain. Why do we treat people the way we treat people? Not just in intimate relationships, but in all of our relationships. Because we're showing up as a wounded adult child of self. And we will continue to behave that way in a very unconscious way until we have the courage to step in and do the work so that that child within can grow up right here, right now. It's time. It's time to stop dancing around, hurting each other. It's time to start dancing, empowered, loving who you're becoming, honoring those moments when you feel emotional in a healthy way, and honoring those moments when you get to show up as that divine feminine woman and as that divine masculine man with respect and honor, still providing nourishment and nurturing yourself and each other so that you can dance all the way to the moon like I did today. And with that, peace and blessings, viewers. If you heard something tonight that resonated with you, please share it out. Share it out with your friends and family. people you care about that are in pain, that are suffering.
Yes.
And with that, we'll see you next week. You guys want to join me?
Let's
And it's
go.
Yes.
on Real Men
Real talk.
Live.
Yes.